She moved out of her childhood home when she was 2 years old. But she did not move far. She never went far. Her new territory begins exactly where her mother's territory ends. She can smell her mother's marks every morning from her own boundary line. Her mother knows her reproductive cycle, her health, her movements, through chemistry in the air. They have not been face-to-face in 14 months. They do not need to be. We are not describing a human daughter and her mother. We are describing a Bengal tiger, the animal science called the ultimate solitary predator. And what researchers found when they followed her for 10 years rewrote the field manual. She is not solitary. She has never been what we meant by that word. She chose proximity. She chose to stay near the person, the tiger, who knew this land best. And the data shows her cubs survive at a measurably higher rate because of that choice. Here is what the 10-year Punna Tiger Reserve study found about tigers and family bonds. Young female tigers routinely establish their first territories adjacent to their mother's range, not randomly elsewhere. Scientists call this philopatry, returning to, or remaining near, the natal area after independence. In humans, we have 100 words for this. Roots, home, not being able to leave the neighborhood. For the tiger, it is a survival strategy, not a sentimental one, and that distinction matters enormously. By staying near her mother's range, she inherits access to water sources and prey corridors already mapped. She avoids the catastrophic cost of dispersal, entering unknown territory with unknown threats and no information. Her mother's presence on the boundary is itself a form of protection from unfamiliar males passing through. This is not weakness. This is the most energy-efficient survival decision available to a young female tiger. Now see it from the mother's side of the shared boundary line. She is 6 years old, at peak hunting condition, controlling 40 square kilometers of prime forest. She knows her daughter's scent trail crosses the eastern boundary every 3 to 4 days. She knows her daughter entered estrus for the first time last month. She could read it in the chemistry. She adjusted her own patrol routes for 2 weeks, creating safe passage through the corridor between their ranges. She did this without being asked, without being shown, without any direct contact at all. Here is what the science from Punna says about how this works at the neural level. Tigers have spatial memory capacity comparable to many primate species. They can hold hundreds of scent location maps. The mother's 10-year map of her territory is one of the most complex cognitive structures in the forest. By staying adjacent, the daughter gets read access to that map through scent trails, through shared water holes, through timing. She is inheriting knowledge, not territory, knowledge. And knowledge in this ecosystem is more valuable than territory. Now look at the male side of the tiger's social world, because it is completely different. Male tigers do disperse. They must, to avoid inbreeding and to find territories to hold. A young male travels hundreds of kilometers from his birth area before establishing any stable range. During that dispersal, he is alone in a way that the females who stayed adjacent never are. He has no inherited map, no known water holes, no boundary chemistry to read from a trusted source. His social network must be built entirely from scratch, through direct encounter and through chemical introduction. The GPS data shows male tigers have a much higher mortality rate in their first 2 years of independence. Not because they are weaker, but because they are genuinely alone in a way the females are not. This asymmetry in tiger social structure mirrors something observable in many human cultures and communities. Daughters who maintain proximity to their mother's knowledge networks raise children with statistically lower mortality rates. Sons who disperse into unfamiliar social networks face higher early mortality risks. The data exists across many species. We are not the only ones who navigate this tension between independence and connection. We are just the only ones who argue about it in group chats and family dinners. A tiger faces the same fundamental question at 2 years old. How far is far enough? The daughter who stayed near the boundary answered, close enough to still read her mother's marks every morning. 3 weeks ago, the GPS collar data showed something the field team had to look at twice. The mother and daughter crossed paths at the shared waterhole at the same time in daylight. No confrontation, no territorial display, a mutual nose-to-nose contact lasting approximately 8 seconds. Then the mother walked north. The daughter walked south. Both continued their separate patrols. 8 seconds, 14 months apart, and the information transferred in those 8 seconds was enough. The researchers watching the GPS data in real time called it the first documented deliberate meeting between this pair. The science still does not fully agree on what that 8-second contact means, or whether to call it a relationship. But here is what the GPS collar showed in the 7 days after that waterhole meeting. The daughter's patrol range shifted slightly east, away from 3 known male corridors that her mother's longer experience would have flagged as dangerous. She moved exactly as if someone had warned her, and someone had. Not with words, not with signals we can name, with 8 seconds of direct chemical transfer and then silence. You have done this too, perhaps not in 8 seconds, but in the exact same way. A conversation with your mother that changed your route without you realizing she was warning you. A boundary you maintain, not out of coldness, but out of the knowledge that distance is sometimes what care looks like. The tiger who stayed near her mother's territory is not failing at being a tiger. She is being a tiger more successfully than the textbook ever predicted she could be. Science called it solitary for a century because the spaces between the marks looked like loneliness. They were never loneliness. They were chosen distance, which is the most sophisticated social strategy of all. The next time you see a tiger walking alone through a wide landscape, ask yourself what you are really seeing. Because she is not alone. She is holding the center of an invisible network that keeps her alive. We called it instinct. She calls it exactly what we do, family, at a distance, still present.